and welcome to Business Unusual. I'm Lisa Dube. This evening, I'm going to be having a chat with the ZimTrade CEO, Allan Majuru. Thank you so much for making time to chat with us this evening to talk about all things trade.
Thank you very much, Mona Lisa, and good evening, listeners.
All right, so I normally want to start the show with a bit of basics, right? So that people know the context of why you're here and what ZimTrade does. So walk us through the mandate of ZimTrade and the work that you do.
So our mandate is very specific. Our job is to grow exports. We market the country. Even if yourself, you've got a product that we can sell outside the country, we'll definitely make sure that we sell your services outside the country. So we mainly focus on validated goods and services when we do our export promotion, but also we focus on export development. This is the capacity building bit. Remember, when people go to markets, they also have to appreciate how to penetrate the markets. Also, they have to be prepared in terms of product spec for them to penetrate. So we also train about those things, and packaging is quite key. You know, people buy what they see. If, for example, I'll tell you, when you buy Chompkins or Lay's, you don't buy what's inside, you buy their pill. So we also put much focus on that. But with the advent of COVID, we've also been focusing on digital marketing because it's quite key, and we've set up what we call Shop at Zim, which is mainly focused at making sure that we market our products coming from Zimbabwe to the rest of the world, including also our services. So in a nutshell, that is what we have been doing and we are doing.
And how has trade been in Zimbabwe generally when you look at the past couple of years, also factoring in the issue of COVID-19 that disrupted trade at some point?
So, yeah, trade reduced, exports reduced a little bit during the COVID period. But I can say for the past 2 years, it has been very good. Remember, 2021, I think we hit the biggest target ever as a nation in terms of exports when we hit about 6 billion. And last year, 2022, we closed at around 7 billion. And our target is by 2023 to hit 7.2 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So we are within reach of that target. The key issue now is what are we exporting? I think that's where we need to have a discussion. And for us, as I've said, our focus is on promoting validated goods and services. So if you look at that structure for last year, validated goods and services, the exports grew by around 13%, which is good because our target was to make sure that cumulatively we grow exports annually by 10% so that we get to the 7.2 billion, So that has been going on well, but the export structure is more tilted to commodities, our tobacco, the raw ones, the minerals, the cotton. So we need to focus more in terms of getting investors to do value addition so that we retain value and then we don't export jobs. Yeah.
Right. So I'm interested to know as well, what are some of our key products that the markets are wanting? But obviously, I know maybe we'll need to probably segment them because I know as ZimTrade, you do a lot of missions, outward missions, inward as well. So maybe if you can just break down some of the products, the preferred products of Zimbabwean products, and depending on the markets that are actually wanting these products.
So I'll start with the processed food sector. I think it did well. I think last year the exports grew by around 25%, and this was mainly attributed to trade within Africa and mainly East Africa, but also Zambia and Malawi took a fair portion of it. Remember last year the president went to Kenya, and we then had a couple of missions, both outward and inward, that we did, and we also did one in Tanzania. So that has put a lot of traction of our goods into the East African market. For example, I think this month I got a call from our ambassador in Kenya advising me that I went into a shop and then I saw a couple of shops actually. She saw a lot of Cerevita in the shops. Yeah, so it's also signifying the work that has been done on the ground on the same with the assistance of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And if you look at the agricultural implements and input sector, I think we exported a lot of maize and also implements, and mainly also in the region. This is Zambia, Malawi, Angola, and Tanzania on that. So that sector grew, I think, if I'm not mistaken, by around 35%. But also the sector that has been growing gradually over the past years is the packaging sector. And if you know, I think Hunyani packaging and also Megapack have been in the forefront. I think last week the CEO of Unyani, Mr. Dangarimbizi, gave a presentation showing the positive trajectory that is coming through the packaging sector. It's supported by the local market, but also the export sector. They've got a lot of big tenders that they won regionally, so it's also pushing their exports to go up. The aquaculture sector previously has not been doing well, but the good thing is exports from that sector, although the figure is low, they grew by around 117%, which is quite good. I think of late, issues to do with raw materials, etc. competition was not doing well for them, but I think we're happy to say that they've bounced back, and we hope and pray that we maintain that growth in a sustainable manner. Yeah.
So you've dwelled much on the African region and African trade. Let's look at trade outside of Africa. I know, again, you do a lot of travel and a lot of surveys that you conduct as ZimTrade. How is it looking? Do we have any potential markets that we should be looking at that we're not doing as much? And also, what has been the general response to Zimbabwean products?
So before I answer that, I just want to give you an outline in terms of the structure of our exports. Number one export market is South Africa. Number two, followed by UAE. Number three is China. Then we've got Belgium, Zambia, and Mozambique following through. So a lot of trade is happening outside Africa, but most of it is concentrated within Africa in support of intra-Africa trade. If you look at UAE, in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, our exports were around 220 million. But fast forward now, we're hitting 2 billion. So the work that has gone through in terms of developing that market for the past 5 years is now bear fruit. And if we continue like that, pretty soon UAE is going to be our number one market, and then South Africa number two.
Really?
Yeah. It's growing very fast. Because South Africa has maintained it around 2.7 billion. But if you look at the growth that has been happening in UAE, it's quite massive.
So what are we exporting to UAE?
So we're exporting minerals. We are also exporting the fast foods, and also the leather products. They're quite unique. But what's more important, what's getting traction, is the horticulture, fresh produce. Because remember, it's a desert. So a lot of our blueberries, our stone fruits, the peaches are going there. So citrus, you name it. So a lot of it is going there. So a lot of work is going to happen there. If you look at China, currently I think we are in the process of finalizing the citrus protocol for us to export oranges, because in China we get more value. I think an orange is going for $1 in China, one orange, $1, which is very good price. Here, I think you get $1 for 2, 3, I don't know. So that's a very good price for the market. But most of our macadamia has been going to China and Hong Kong, and it has been very good. But minerals are key, our gold, the lithium, etc. are the ones that dominate that market, including also the tobacco, because a lot of contract growing is happening through China. So it's quite a big market. And this year, we've got a number of activities that are lined up. We're going to do a business forum in China, which I'll take the liberty to invite you now, so that you can also come talk about it yourself here, host your way. Yeah. And we're also going to do, because the focus is, I think we have to focus more on the East. We're not forgetting other markets, but we have to do more work in the East. And also Malaysia. I think this year Malaysia has got a Malaysia African Business Forum, which we're going to take part. And we want to use Malaysia as a launchpad to go into the surrounds that are there. So a lot of work is also going to go into that. Europe for us has been a market, recently with the Brexit, we are dealing directly with UK. And we have been exporting fresh produce to the Netherlands. 80 to 85% of our fresh produce goes to Europe. But what has been coming out now is the essential oils, that are being made in the communities. So those essential oils are now getting into Europe. We are planning fairs in London and also in Germany, because Germany is one of the biggest consumers of essential oils. And this is going to benefit a lot of communities when we do that. The leather products, I think if you look at, we formed what we call the Zimbabwe Leather Collective. It's a website. If you have time, you can Google it. It's very nice, well presented. And that website has managed to make sure that people in the leather sector in Zimbabwe manage to tap into the international market. So we are doing exotic skins and also cowhides in terms of belts, shoes, and leather bags for export.
You speak of communities because obviously at the end of the day, this has to also benefit Zimbabwe as a whole, right? And you'd understand that the Zimbabwean economy has largely become, small to medium enterprises, largely informal. So how does an entrepreneur or someone who's in the SME sector or a farmer who is in Chivu benefit from these trade opportunities? How can they get their exports or their produce exported out of Zimbabwe?
There's a lot that we're doing, but I'm going to try and summarize, and hopefully I will not miss the key important points. So what we've done, we've formed what we call Eagle's Nest. This is a youth-led initiative that we are looking at startups and even SMEs, taking them from where they are and making sure that we walk the road with them up until they're export ready. And this initiative is targeted at all provinces. We're not concentrating on Harare and Bulawayo. We try to get youths from all provinces, 10 youths from all provinces that come through. We train them, and then we've got finalists that we then facilitate to penetrate the export market. And I'm glad to say last year, on the first season, we've managed to get some of the youths to participate in international trade fairs in Zambia and some in Botswana. And some of them are literally setting up distributorship. One is in the leather sector, and then one is in the essential oils. A girl called Leanne in Maintain Organics is doing quite well. So they're setting distributorship in Zambia. So we are trying to also put SMEs through that. We've also launched a program called Next She Exporter. Female-led enterprises looking at how they can best penetrate export markets, and we've started this program last year, and the first season is ending in March this end. Also, I'll take this opportunity to invite you to come through.
A lot of invites for me.
So that you can also see on the ground what is really happening.
Right.
So that has also helped women-led enterprises to get into the mainstream export business. But what has been a game changer for us is also what we call clusters from the communities. So I'll give you an example. We formed a cluster in Chimanimani, where the epicenter of the cyclone was. And these guys are now exporting pineapples to the Netherlands. The price jumped from around 20-30 cents a kg to around 75 to $1 a kg. So the money that is retained in Zimbabwe. So that is an achievement for us through organic certification. And we've literally started to do the same in Chirumanzi. We're focusing on sesame seed. In Mutoko, there's an irrigation scheme that we're working on, and we went to Mozambique to look for buyers, and we went there. We then figured out the irrigation scheme cannot support the export that is in demand there alone. So we are now incorporating other irrigation schemes in Manicaland to make sure that we tap into Mozambique. And we've got an avocado one that we're also working on in Bindura to export avocados. Avocado is a superfood. It's in high demand in Europe.
So how does one become part of these clusters, the movement that you're talking about, the Eagle Nest? How does one actually then become part of it? Like they're hearing on it for the first time, perhaps on radio right now, and they actually want to get hold of being part of it and get their products to be exported. So
people can approach our offices physically if they want, but even online, if you go to our website, we have calls that we've put especially for Eagle's Nest, because we're doing the third season now. So they can also do that even on Twitter at ZimTrade Alerts. They can also go there and get information on how they can apply. Even on Facebook, we are there. I think we also have got our contact numbers. I don't know if you want me to share them now.
No, we can share towards the end of the show.
Yeah, so they can also get in touch with us. But the issue is we have got what can I call factors that we look at for you to be part of it. It's not like you just come and you're part of it. But even if you don't succeed, you can always try again, and we also help you to reach to a level where we want you to also participate.
So let's look at those factors. Look at those factors, because I think one of the issues that a lot of young people in this country are experiencing is they want to grow their business. They want to grow their product just outside of Zimbabwe as well. And sometimes it's like, okay, where do I even start from? How do I qualify? How do I know if my business actually qualifies? So maybe walk us through exactly what it is that you're looking for. And I think there's something that you said when you were explaining, you said they have to be export ready. Then you also explain what that means, what that entails.
Yeah. So when we say export ready, actually this is where we start. We've got what we call an export readiness checker. I think it has got around 7 to 8 questions that we ask you to just see where you are and how we can assist you. For instance, how many years have you been in business? What sort of products you are producing? Is there management commitment? What levels of financing are you? What finance do you require? And what markets are you looking at? Because we need to marry the product and the market. Having a hobby is good, but a hobby must meet demand for you to be in business.
What if it's a profitable hobby?
That's what I'm saying. It has to meet demand. I'll tell you an example. Right now, you can grow or you want to sell alcohol, but you want to sell it to a Muslim country. They will not buy.
Right.
So you need to make sure that what you are producing has got a market. That's the starting point. You cannot go and force things down people's throats just because you are enjoying producing the same. So the issue is
or maybe
there.
Because it's viable in Zimbabwe.
Yeah. So the issue is their demand. But we always tell people that for you to be able to participate in the international market, you also have to do good locally, because the local business is sort of the yardstick. It helps you support your exports. Margins in the export side are not as big as selling locally, because remember, you have to go through logistics, you have to go transport, some perishables, you use reefers, etc. So you have to take into cognizance those issues for you to get into that export business. So there are a lot of factors that we look at, but the issue is when you even are not export ready, the fact that you go through the export readiness checker is to see how best we can assist you to become export ready in those aspects. So those aspects now also include, because at the end of the day, if you have to sell your goods in a profitable manner, so logistics is key, and also negotiation. You might have a good product, but if you go into the market and fail to negotiate, you're also not...
But do you not help them with this?
No, we do. We do. So these are aspects that I'm raising so that people also have an appreciation that it's a journey. It's not an event. It's a process that we go through to make sure that at the end of the day, we are able to get into a market and do business and retain some money.
This is Business Unusual. We are with the ZimTrade CEO, Allan Majuru, and we are talking trade. And just now we're talking about how entrepreneurs, small businesses can also take part in the trade of their products across the continent as well as abroad. Now, there's issue to do with the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And I know there have been, I think I hosted one of the key people in that space to talk about what have been the sticking points. I understand there have been a bit of sticking points, sending our documents, giving them back. Do we know where we stand currently and how that is helping with the trade of Zimbabwean products?
I think the issue is now finalizing the issues to do with the rules of origin. That schedule needs to be submitted. But actually, the key issue also that has been emanating from the discussions that have been happening is the issue of infrastructure. It's easy for us to do business with Europe and Middle East than to do business in Africa because of infrastructure. For us, I think a good example is what has happened to Bedbridge Border Post. That is what we need in Africa to make sure that goods move seamlessly and they don't spend a lot of time at the borders. If you want to travel, if you go to UK, for example, the cost of a ticket is around $1,000 or $1,000 US, 1,500. But if you want to go to Ghana, you might equally pay the same. So logistics and infrastructure needs to be worked on. We have access to the Namibian dry port that we're working on. That port needs to be capacitated so that at least it makes it easy for us to do business as a country. Right now, we are targeting the East and the West African market. And for the logistics to make sense for Zimbabwe, we have to work with the Namibian dry port for us to be able to penetrate Senegal and even Ghana as a market. So infrastructure is a key thing that we need to look at.
So there's obviously need for African governments, African private sector to actually coordinate to make sure that business within the African continent actually grows.
Yeah.
So from the conversations that you're having with maybe sister trade as yourselves in different countries, what has been the conversations that you're having regarding improving infrastructure and increasing trade in Africa? Because I remember the issues that you bring up when we were at the Rwanda Zimbabwe Trade Investment Conference in Kigali. It was one of the major issues that were coming up to say trading with African countries is not only expensive, but it's tedious because of infrastructure. So from those conversations, what has been the progress on what to do about infrastructure infrastructure in Africa?
So for us, like I said, I think we're happy with what has happened at Beitbridge. It's quite good, and I'm hearing also the same is going to happen at Chirundi and other border posts, so that we facilitate trade. But what is also important is, despite the infrastructure, our companies need to be competitive. That is producing goods, quality goods at least cost. So issues that affect competitiveness need also to be dealt with. And this has been also the major thrust when the government was looking at the ease of doing export business, to make sure that goods move seamlessly. And a lot of work, I'm glad to say, has been done on that frame. But also we need to be conscious that with the world we are living is dynamic. Things change. Sometimes, as much as Zimbabwe, we are improving our ease of doing business. Let's also remember that other countries are equally doing the same.
Already ahead of
Yeah.
us.
So we need to also we need to continuously retrospect and innovate to see how best we can make sure that goods also move seamlessly across borders.
Yeah. But how you speak about being competitive, just how competitive are Zimbabwean products on the market? I know with abroad sometimes we have an advantage because of our agricultural produce, because of our weather, etc. But with other produce that is easily accessible in South Africa, in Zambia and Mozambique, how are we faring?
So one good thing that we normally find when we talk to the buyers, we ask them, why do you prefer our goods? And one word that comes is quality. We produce goods of good quality. There's been some infringement where there are copycats, for lack of a better word, that have tried to do what we do similarly, and they lower the price. And normally the tendency as a human being, you run to where
the cheaper one.
But the long term now, those things break down quickly, etc., and then they then come back.
What are some of those products?
Like, for instance, there was an issue with our plows, where a company was exporting plows to Zambia and Tanzania, and there was an infringement. People ran to the cheap ones. They didn't work out well, and then they came back to the ones that were coming from Zimbabwe. Yeah.
So we're going to be taking a quick break, and then we'll continue with the conversation with Allan Majuru here. And we're going to be playing a track which was done by the ZimTrade staff called Usabata. Tell us about this song.
So what happened is with the team here, Danai and Karen, we said we need to put in our voice towards the drug abuse that is happening. So we did a team building exercise and we called in recorders as a fun event. So we said each group must compose a song, and then here we are.
This was the winning track.
Yeah.
Are you vocal or somewhere in this track?
Yeah, the nice part. The nice part is where I sang, yeah.
All right, so we'll be taking a break, and we are playing Usabata by the ZimTrade staff. Let us know what you think about this track. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Business Unusual. I'm Monalisa Dube, and we are talking to the ZimTrade CEO, Allan Majuru, and we're discussing trade issues in Zimbabwe. Now, I know that you have a lot of conferences, a lot of missions, a lot of travel. Just how fruitful are these? Just how productive are these? Because, you know, institutions are normally accused of just liking to travel.
So, we do what we call return on investment when we travel. And when we also do this trade promotion, we do them in consultation with the private sector. It's not our want, but we are just responding to their demand. I'll give you an example. Quite recently, the team was in Berlin attending Fruit Logistica, and it's an horticultural fair. And I can tell you that deals that were finalized during that fair were 5.7 million. Deals that are under negotiation as we speak, around 30 million. So we put in around $50,000
for the travel,
for the travel and for the exhibition. Remember, we buy space, which is the most expensive bit. We then assist in ferrying of exhibits. We design the stand, etc. All that cost is borne by ZimTrade. The companies just then do the travel and the accommodation for that fair. So if you look at the return on investment, I think there's no way where you can put 50,000 and get 5 million in return in terms of instant deals, and also under negotiation, it's around 13 million. And the same applies, the team was also in Frankfurt, Germany, for the biggest show in terms of arts and crafts called Ambiente. And this was our first time Zimbabwe has ever exhibited in that, and we took arts and crafts from various parts of the country, Buhera, Binga, Lupane, etc. We took them there. And the deals that were closed during that fair, it's around 200,000. So 200,000 arts and crafts is a lot of money. Yeah, I'm talking about somebody in a communion area coming and getting $3,000 just from sending her goods to that fair. So for us, the focus is on return on investment, but also the other aspects that we also do. It's a learning platform for us. You also need to know what others are doing so that we also innovate towards being competitive.
Right.
So we also take it as a learning platform, but also we also use the same as a platform for our companies to source cheaper raw materials and also good quality raw materials. So we also measure those aspects when we do trade fairs apart from the business that is generated.
How are you? What is your sentiment towards the devolution process? I know it plays a key part in your community work that you're doing. Are you happy with the progress that's happening in that regard? And how is that contributing to your targets as ZimTrade of actually getting more produce out of the Zimbabwean?
Yes, we are happy. And I think one good thing that came through was when the permanent secretaries in the different provinces were given staff. And some of the staff are also focusing on the economic activity. So we are working closely with them. Even our Eagle's Nest, our next year exporter, we take a deliberate effort to say we should have representatives from all provinces. Even our clusters, if you see them, they are in all provinces, so that we make sure that we target. Our goal actually is to make sure that we have all districts contributing something towards exports. So for us, we are quite happy. Even if you look at how we did the Ambiente show, our first time participation, we had Buera, Lupane, Binga, even Harare, Bulawayo. All these provinces contributed to exhibits that went there.
Now, a number of international organizations have raised concern about food insecurity in Zimbabwe and whether we are producing enough to actually take care of the Zimbabwean population. Do you think, from the work that you're doing, do you think that we actually do have enough produce in this country to feed the Zimbabwean population and export at the same time?
Yes, I think the good story to tell is what happened on the wheat harvest, where we have a 13-month supply window, which means we are home and dry. And even the previous season for maize, they were home and dry. But if you look at the export side, especially horticulture, mashed and sugar snap peas, we don't have a taste for lack of a better word. Most of these things are exported. We're used to our normal peas, There's the peas that we grew up eating. I grew up eating. That is what I'm used to. But things like eggplants, if you grow them, the next best thing is demand here is very low. You export. Things like chili. I know chili is not sweet, but it's better for other people to get some chili out of our product. So there is enough for us to consume locally, but also enough for us to export on the same front. Yeah.
So early on, you spoke about having a target of having about 7.2 billion by the end of this year as your trade figure as ZimTrade as a country. What is the plan? What are the measures that you put in place to actually have that jump to that target figure?
I think just to sum up, first I'll start on the development side, the clusters. We are going to be doing more clusters this year, focusing on other provinces, Midlands, Mat South, Mat North, to make sure that we increase the product for export. But also what we're going to be doing is market diversification. Ghana is one, Senegal is another, Malaysia, as I've spoken about, also China. We're going to do a little bit of effort because we also measured not only in the number, but also in the diversification of markets.
And this is also in your trade strategy, yes?
Yes, in the national export strategy. So that is very there, and it's very key. And we're going to do a review before end of this year, because 2023 is when the strategy is ending. So we're going to do a review to take stock of our successes and also look at the challenges and how best we can then counter those challenges in the next strategy as we go to 2030. Yeah.
And what are some of the major challenges you would say Zimbabwe is experiencing to actually get to that trade potential?
I'll start. COVID really slowed us down. I think that is common, but also the electricity challenges. They've really affected a lot of companies in terms of production. Some have resorted to the use of generators, etc., and that affects the cost of doing business. And when you then try to export, remember you're also competing with the likes of South Africa, Egypt, etc., in the market, and some of them are not facing similar challenges to us. So if they are, the cost is limited, So for me, the key issue right now is, I think, the issue of electricity. I think companies have been hit badly in terms of cost of production when it comes to the export business.
And from the engagement with the authorities, are there any other plans? Because I know that sometimes there are like rebates or discounts or incentives that people get, maybe if they pay electricity in USD, etc. Are there any incentives that are being given to make sure that the producers have access to electricity all the time?
Yeah, I think incentives are there, but the issue is we have to acknowledge that we've got a challenge, and we have to look at it in a manner that we are also into business. So there are options available of getting into solar, which is something, I know it might be expensive initially as initial cost outlay, but also it assists with going green. And when you then do business with the likes of Europe, if you are going green, you get credits. So they'll prefer buying your goods because you are environmentally friendly.
Is this why online now you see a lot of businesses have this eco-certified thing? It comes with discounts.
Yeah. So even when you go organic, etc., you also tend to get, one, a market, but two, better value in terms of money. So they prefer paying a lot for people who are more environmental conscious, who are practicing fair trade in terms of labor issues and organic stuff. So it's a challenge, but I think if we flip it, it can be an opportunity that companies can take advantage of.
Right. So I was looking through your calendar on your latest report at ZimTrade. You have these monthly reports that you send out. I was looking at your calendar, and there's a list of a lot of activities and conferences that are coming up. Maybe you can walk us through some of the key ones that you would want people to really know about and take note of as the year progresses.
So I think Jermaine have already spoken about. So I'll go. We've got a Dubai Business Forum, UAE, and the good thing about Dubai, it focuses in that region. You can do Qatar, you can do Saudi Arabia, you can do Kuwait, that region. So we also have got the China one that is coming through later on in the year, I think around June, the Zimbabwe-China Business Forum that is going to happen. We are also going to be bringing in buyers from Kenya and Malawi, I think next month, to solidify what we have done in those markets. And we are also going to be going to the Zambia Agriculture Commercial Show. It's one big event where most of our companies have managed to strike deals and even get distributorship from what we got last year when we did it. And we are also, for the essential oils, it's a niche market, but we are also going to facilitate for them to also go to one of the biggest fairs in London, so that we let them meet buyers. I think in a nutshell, I'll focus on those, but there are plenty more.
Inter-African Trade Fair?
Yeah. Actually, no, thanks for that. I think in November this year, the Inter-African Trade Fair is going to be held in Côte d'Ivoire. And as Zimbabwe, we've already booked our space, quite a big pavilion. We did well the last time in Durban in terms of business. I think business that we generated after even follow-ups came to around 20 million. From that, and we are hoping to surpass that target when we do it this year in November. Remember, during that period, our stand was one of the best in Africa in terms of presentability. It draws customers. It's also
presentation is everything. It's like packaging, isn't it?
Yeah, packaging, and also it talks to branding in a certain way. So we were hoping to maintain that and even do better when we do the one in November. So companies interested can get in touch with us so that we make sure that we go and share the Zimbabwean story to the rest of the world. Yeah.
And then there is I think it's the International Expo that happens every 5 years. The last one was held in Dubai, the Dubai Expo. And the one in 2025 is the one that's happening in Osaka, Japan. Yeah. Tell us a bit more about that.
So ZimTrade is spearheading that. I'm the Commissioner General. So it's a title that I never...
What does that mean? What does it entail?
At least I'm not Commissioner General of Police, but when I move around in town, I don't tell people that. I tell them I'm just the Commissioner General, which is good for me.
And they don't know what it is.
Yeah. But anyway, the issue is I'm responsible for making sure that Zimbabwe participates fully in the fair in Osaka. And our focus is concentrated on visit, trade, and invest, which is trade, investment, and tourism. So that's our focus. But the main issue is to make sure that we put our best foot forward in making sure that brand Zimbabwe is known. And when we talk about Brown Zimbabwe, it's not marketing. It's about what are we known for and what promise are we telling the rest of the world such that when they come here, they live that promise. So we are going to be putting much focus on that. And the initiative is going to be private sector led as ZimTrade, and also on behalf of government. Our job is to facilitate and provide a platform. But after we've done that, businesses now have to take advantage of the opportunities that are there to make sure that we realize benefit from the same. So we have begun the process of setting tangible targets, both in terms of trade, investment, and tourism, to make sure that after the event is done, we come back and take stock to see whether we've achieved our targets.
So maybe to put it in context and the importance of these exports and etc., tell us just how much business was generated from the previous expo in Dubai, the Dubai Expo, and how much you're expecting to get from Osaka 2025.
So for us, I'll talk from a trade bit. We did a trade business forum, and also we then had His Excellency coming through for the Zimbabwe Day. But apart from that, every day we had representatives talking about trade. And for us, I think when the expo ended, we had generated business coming to around 13 million, if I'm not mistaken, on the export side. The investment side, now you're seeing Malk City coming through. A lot of investors are tripping through from Dubai. And this is coming from the expo as well. And even the tourism bit, some tourists can be attributed to the exposure that came through the expo. So I cannot give precise figures, but it was very helpful.
And how autonomous is ZimTrade in terms of which markets you're going to explore, in terms of which business are you going to get into? Are there any other influences or maybe political influences that come into deciding that? Or just how do you decide which market you're going to?
So ZimTrade, we fall under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. So when we go to markets, we are guided by the government, but also we get input from the business guys. Because at the end of the day, it's
private
about
sector
meeting demand. So, for example, I'll tell you, quite recently I was in Equatorial Guinea. And when we engage companies, you would not see Equatorial Guinea popping up. But we went for a state visit. I was there. We did a market scan and we realized that our goods have massive potential. But that initiative was led by government. So both government and private sector are working together to make sure that we penetrate into markets. We are owned by government, we're owned by the private sector. So that's how we move and operate.
And as we wrap up the conversation, what would you say to a young business person who really wants to get their product out, their product or service out of Zimbabwe, and they really want to be recognized? What would you say for someone who also wants to be part of this 7.2 billion target that you have?
So I want to tell you a story of a young man who runs a company called Moreda. It's a very young man. He was operating in Bluffville in a small space similar to this station. No, I mean this room. We went, we saw him. He got on to Eagle's Nest. We trained him. He went to Zambia. He managed to get distributorship. He won the Eagle's Nest award. And the guy is in business. So I want to tell the youths that no matter where you're operating from, even Apple started from a garage, and look at what's happening. We don't look at that. We look at the future and vision that you have for your business. No matter if you don't have money or you don't have somewhere to operate from. The issue is, what's your vision and where are we going, and is there demand? So this young man proved a lot of people wrong when he started working with us, even his business. But now the sky's the limit for this guy. So I would encourage young people to take advantage of these programs that we're offering, both as Eagle's Nest and also as the Next Year Exporter. Sometimes people, they've got an attitude to say, these are the programs that we all hear about, they are not impactful, etc. But we have stories to tell from the beneficiaries that if you get into and be part of these programs, a lot of changes can happen to your businesses and also on the export front.
Allan Majuru, Chief Executive for ZimTrade. Thank you so much for making time to chat with us here on Business Unusual.
Thank you, Malalisa.
And that's all the time we had here on ZiFM Stereo on Business Unusual. I am Mona Lisa Dube. I'll be back again same time next week. Stay with us here on ZiFM Stereo.